I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Here. 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 Present.
Here. Received a copy of the minutes from the March 11th meeting. If there are no corrections or objections, I entertain a motion to accept them.
Make that motion.
Second.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I don't believe we have any departmental reports this meeting. Does anybody have any correspondence they'd like to offer council this evening? I'd like to announce this time that Rapid City Council can and may hold an executive session anytime between this and our next regularly stated meeting. In fact, immediately after this meeting, we'll be holding an executive session on potential litigation and personnel matters. Now comes the time to petition here visitors. If anybody in the audience would like to address council, we ask you to stand and please state your name and address for the record.
First of all, turn on council because I remember the older Mr. Clover, the older Mr. Lucas, and I know the befores, and this, and you've been here for a while too. This room used to be packed with people, and I'm sorry to say that I don't know if we've all gotten too old or we just don't care anymore. But I'm here to talk about a few things. I saw Mr. Shannon and thanked him for the good service the road did. These are his kudos, wait until later. And also the police department, since I cannot park in my garage because of my foot and walk up the long hillside, they've been very good about letting me park on the street on Thursdays. So let's discuss Thursdays first. I realize that the city has financial problems and they're trying to save money. So my question is this: if they cannot clean the streets on Thursday with the street cleaner, because it's usually broke or not working or something, why do the residents have to have their cars off the street on Thursday? My only thing to this was, if we could move them across the street, there would be no problems. But there are, the house next door to me is an apartment house, 5 cars. The street down, there's only 3 houses left in my end. The one street has 1 car and I have 1 car. I have a garage, which I'm very fortunate to be able to put it in. But, and the reason I wouldn't even put it on the hill is because I can't take working places away from the people who really need it. And I have a reason not to use my garage. So my question is, what do we do about the fact is, do we have to move our cars during the summertime on Thursday? I realize that in the winter, the fellows did a very good job on the streets, and I'm proud of that to say that. But I can understand moving in the winter. But if we're not going to clean the streets, why leave them on the south?
Yeah. I didn't.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your name and I don't know
Sorry.
what street you're from.
I know just about everybody. It's Pat Gerard, 40 High Street, Bradford.
Okay, thank you.
You're not the first person to bring this up, and in a perfect world, it'd be nice if we'd have a street sweeper every week on every street, but it just can't happen. Can't happen. So the changeover, the changeover is not just for the street sweeper; it's also for the plowing as well. And another more important reason we see more often is people will park inoperable vehicles on the street, and if they don't have to move them, it's not legal to have an inoperable vehicle on the street. The vehicle has to be able to run and be roadworthy. And I've seen it even on the street. I go down to get to my house, cars get parked there, and there is not a changeover on the street that goes to my house. And I'll call it in. I'll see vehicles will sit there for months and months, and never move. They're inoperable. They get left there, and there's several streets like that. But so it's meant to get people into the habit of switching over once a week. You can't do it one week and not another week, because the street was down this week. I don't know how we would notify people that you don't have to move it this week, but next week you do, or next month you do. So we just leave it intact like that.
We don't have a TV station to announce it. But most of the time, the people up there who have to move their cars during the winter to the opposite side of the street get a little message on the TV, and it says, you do not have to move your cars until December 2nd because there's no snow, and we're not going to be having a big snowfall. So they do that. I'm just saying, I wouldn't even care. And South Avenue is the same way. Tom, if we had places to move these cars, there are no, I mean, everybody has 3 and 4 cars in the house. There's no place to put them. And the sadness is, for people now, the little girl next door has 3 children, her husband works out of time, the children are 4, 3, and 2. She cannot leave those kids in the house alone to come and move that car. She's always getting a ticket. I mean, there's situations that need to be looked at. If all they have to do is put up a sign, say, move your cars between the months of November and April. And it's not the idea that the streets are that dirty, because when they get dirty in front of my house, I call Pat Shannon and tell him. Because, you know, I counted 60 cigarette butts coming from the house next door. And I came down to the city, they sent them a notice, and that isn't going on anymore. That's the first thing. Now, let's go to the stop sign at the end of High Street. I kept thinking there was going to be an accident there. I really did.
Stop sign where, to be specific?
High Street in Maine. That makes you park clear back here if you're going down Main Street. I can understand why, because of the trucks. So I thought there's going to be an accident someday. Unbeknownst to me that I was going to be the accident. I was waiting for the car in front of me to go, who was turning right. But the sign says you have to stay at the white line. Now that means that there's no one coming down Main Street, but because you cannot see through a brick building, that person waits for the light to turn green, because it does not say except for turning on, turning bright. So, and the big truck was in front of me, I'm standing there waiting, and all of a sudden he starts to back up. And I thought, what's he doing? I'm laying on my horn, the truck is making too much noise. Next thing I know, he plows right into me. Gets out and he said, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there because my car was a lot lower. He was turning right. If he had turned right and didn't have to back up, the accident never would have happened. So that's the thing about the sign that I'm complaining about. I don't know what you can do about it, that's your problem. The second problem is the houses being torn down. We have 2 houses on High Street that have been supposedly being torn down for years. I talked to Karen, I think, one time about it, and supposedly they were going to be torn down in October. They're still there. And I don't know when and if they're ever going to be turned down, but then the people who live in the house next door told me their landlord was going to buy this property because it was adjacent to his, and he didn't want anybody else buying it. Well, you look at the landlord's house, how is he gonna keep this property after he buys it? So I'm just giving you fair warning on that. Doug Schultz was down here, and he is fixing up his house. I hope that means he's fixing up the inside and the outside, which leads me to another matter, which I believe is council. And when I say this about council, I don't mean just you people, I mean the past council. Karen, how many houses do you know will be torn down in the city of Bradford? Any answer to that? Just
How many, what's your question?
the question is, how many houses have been torn down in the city of Bradford in a very short time? Over 100?
You mean just recently?
Yes.
It's not over 100 yet, but it will be. It's not over 100 yet, but it probably will be.
Here's saying these are 100 houses that probably at one time were very, very nice homes, who was either rented by people who didn't care, owned by people who didn't care, or landlords who didn't care. Now, there are ordinances in this city that should be starting to be enforced. One of them is keeping and maintaining your house should be one of them. If it's not, you should put it on there. Because this is the sadness when you think over 100 tax-paying properties have been torn down simply because no one kept them up. Now, whose fault is that? Basically, whoever owned them and council, because council is not doing anything about them until it's time to tear them down. And I've been at the council meeting, only about a year ago, some man was complaining about on his house, his street, and I bet you nothing was ever done. So, I mean, to you, I think if you've got an ordinance, you've got to start enforcing them. Another thing brings me up to the sidewalks and the grass. This winter was a bad winter, and there were more people walking down High Street and the road because the sidewalks weren't shoveled. But if there's an ordinance, I pay someone to shovel my sidewalk and do my yard because I'm no longer able to do it then. And the landlords are putting in the thing now, you have to maintain your own sidewalks and your own lawn. And they charge an arm and a leg. So this is something I think that has to be addressed by someone. It's not fair that these people pay high things and no one is shoveling the walls.
Is that it?
Any comments?
Where would I start? But no, you're talking about tax-paying houses. Most of the houses we're tearing down, the majority of them are in the repository and have not been generating property taxes. People walked away from them years ago, and it is sad and unfortunate. But if you historically look back, the majority of the houses that were built during our population boom, during the oil boom, were thrown on, in many cases, just on pilings with no good foundations under them. Some of the houses later on, they were lifted up, foundations were put under, and many that weren't. But these houses, once they sit empty, even a year or two sometimes, and there's no heat in them, they just start to move and break apart. They're not going to stand the test of time, but nobody in them, no foundations under them. And we do try to go after these people, but lots of times we're chasing people that died years and years ago. Properties that have gone through, now we're seeing more and more, they've gone through tax sales, they've been bought up by LLCs, which you can't go after the LLC, and that shell LLC switches names to another shell LLC, and it's been very, very difficult to go after these people. We're trying. The city of Bradford has never had more Board of Health meetings than it's had in the last 6 months in the same time frame, and many, many decades that I can recall. We're making a concerted effort to tear down many of these blighted properties, as many of these as possible. It's no secret we did have some folks came to us and offered us $1 million to help clean up the blighted homes. They offered it to the city, and we opted it was better to go through a private nonprofit, which you know someone who's involved in that. The city's working with that nonprofit to kind of prioritize them. But we're also tearing down houses with CDG money and other funding too. It's not just solely the donor money. So, and some of these houses are houses that have been the eyesore for a very, very long time.
To get there. It's the council. If you were to enforce it, if you were to sell these houses to somebody else that's going to fix them up. There's a house on High Street, and I will announce to everybody in this whole neighborhood. High Street was an absolutely beautiful neighborhood that lived in the 60s. Absolutely beautiful neighborhood. There were the Italian people, it was kind of the melting pot of the city of Bradford, but they all maintained their yards, their homes, and then the kids moved away and they sold it to whoever would make the highest bid on them, and I can't blame them for that. But the problem is, they should have been kept up. The Monti House on High Street, I don't know who bought it, but he did an absolutely beautiful job of fixing it up. I can't even imagine how much money he put into that home. It's absolutely beautiful. When he fixed it up, the two people next door fixed their houses up. But if you let something deteriorate and continue, then you're ending up tearing them down, you're losing taxpayer monies. And right now, the city of Bradford needs taxpayer monies, no matter what. And I think this is what I'm trying to tell you. And the same thing with South Avenue. Look at Congress Street, how terrible Congress Street looks, one of the most beautiful streets in the city. Look at Pleasant Street on the way to the hospital. You can't continue to let this happen, or you were gonna have no houses and no tax base. And I mean, that's what I'm trying to get into instill tonight, that I know it's not your fault, I'm not blaming you, but what I'm asking for is you sit down, think about this, and how can we prevent this in the future? Because there are not too many houses left in Bradford. And of course, when people move, the tax base goes up. Comes to what I'm saying too. I am on a fixed income. I'm paying $5,000 a year for my policy. That's not Medicare included. That's for a private insurance policy. I did not even get a $40 raise this month, and the tax council's going to take it. The county's going to take it, and my insurance company already took it. So, I mean, you've got to realize that a lot of people in this town are on a fixed income and not able to work or go out back to work. And you got to consider them. You can't just think everybody's making $90,000, $100,000.
We're not, Pat. We're going to move on. You're way past the public comment portion. But I want to address two things because there was a lot. But the two things I'm going to address, then we're going to move on. You said that nothing's been done to Congress Street. We just spent 10 years in Congress Street with the NPP program, put millions and millions of dollars of private money and grant money into that street, into Congress Street. So it's not like we've ignored Congress Street. I was the one that pushed to take that program to Congress Street. But you made the comment, we've done nothing to Congress Street. You just spent 10 years there. You said nothing's been done. And we just spent 10 years in the Congress Street neighborhood. Congress Street's a long street. We can't do more. I'm not here to argue. My points, we're moving on. We're moving on, Pat. Now you make reference to back in the 1960s, that how your ward up there looked a lot better. People had pride back then, unfortunately, and something that you can't legislate is pride. And too many of these landlords and too many of these people that homeowners and people that live in landlords' homes, they don't have pride. They don't have pride like people used to have, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. And it's unfortunate that they don't. And you can just drive around and look at some of these houses. You see the condition of the front yard, the stuff on the front porch. Those people have no pride. They don't. And that's something we can't legislate. We can try to do it through enforcement of our codes, but we can't legislate pride. So that being said, would you like to say something over there?
Yes.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is I'm a new resident of Bradford. I've lived here for about since December, 4 months.
Oh, welcome.
I'm Inspector of Elections in Philadelphia. I'm actually a secretary of a political party in Pennsylvania, the secretary of the Green Party of Pennsylvania. And I want to thank the council for organizing a city that saved me a life this winter when I went homeless from a car accident. I had to stop my service in 3 different roles for local and state government. And luckily, the McKean County Housing Authority and the Bradford High Rise was able to keep me warm this winter when they had an opening. And I went homeless in November as a public servant. Speaking to some of the issues that my neighbor has spoken to, I'm actually thanking you for organizing the effort to create a home rule charter, because that's going to allow us to be able to address some of these issues directly with our own voices in Bradford and Philadelphia. I was able to organize various efforts within our own home rule charter and vote for them to be able to create a land bank, to be able to have the city acquisition some of the properties and then have a use and public role and voice in being able to distribute those properties directly to nonprofits and other efforts. So that way they were not dilapidated and blighted. For that, we also had a dollar home program that was really effective at getting people to purchase the blighted properties and that were able to be rebuilt. And then we got to the point in 2015 there were no more there wasn't enough blighted properties left that the home values were now significantly more valuable, that people now charge $1,200 a month for rent, and people like me had to move out and find places in like Bradford to live in. And so I think that there are different ways that we can revitalize, especially downtown. This is a really beautiful downtown. You have really great opportunities for good urbanism here, people walking down the street. We got to get the Greyhound stop back in downtown. I know you're building that bus terminal. We got to get that Greyhound stop there and bring people to downtown. We got to get that service. I know you guys can't change a lot of the Department of Transportation services because of the rules of the state, but we have to think of different ways that we can get people walking downtown in those neighborhoods again, and we got to think about that. I'm not so much for the parking lots as I am for the sidewalks. In Philadelphia, while I was in the Department of Planning and Development, we lost a lawsuit because our sidewalks were not in the condition for ADA accessibility. And unfortunately, I've tripped with my rollator trying to access our sidewalks. And so I think we really need to invest in like the types of modes of infrastructure that 100% of our community can access. Focusing on parking and things like that are not necessarily going to be functional for every single person. In Bradford is 1 in 5 people are people with disabilities who might have limitations with their mobility. And we don't see very many people here, and that might be a side effect of accessibility of our town. If I'm tripping on the sidewalk and my other neighbors at the high rise are complaining about not being able to get more than blocks of their apartment, it's a really big concern of our community. So if there is funds, I would request that some of them go towards repairing our sidewalk infrastructure in the downtown section of the one.
Thank you. As far as accessibility to this building, the meeting, this, as you know, was handicap accessible, but these meetings are recorded and they're on YouTube, and quite a few people watch them after the fact. We record after the meeting's over, then they're posted on YouTube. So I think in the technological world we live in, some people just are a little bit more laid back, and it's easier to do that than to come to the meetings. But there have been plenty of times when this meeting's been full and all the way down the stairwell and out front. Well, over controversial things over the years, but so maybe we're doing something right. It's not as controversial right now. But thank you both for your comment. We're going to move on to old business. Ordinance number 3165.28, amend pension non-uniform.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. Yes.
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 Mayor,
Yes.
CO 5556, general file number 3165.28, calendar number 20, sections 2025. Ordinance general file number 3165, an ordinance of the city of Bradford, McKean County, Pennsylvania, amending the non-uniformed employees pension plan to clarify pension contributions.
So moved. Second?
Council Pfeffer,
Yes.
Cora,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay, new business, ordinance 3300 home rule charter enter on 2025 general election. I want to say something before we move forward with this. We had a meeting where we had Terry Kunkel up here recently. And then there was an article in the newspaper and a few things got taken out of context of that. We're just doing this move forward to explore home rule. It doesn't mean that home rule is going to happen or the voters going to allow it or there's going to be even a commission elected. But I made a comment during that meeting. We were talking about the antiquated tax codes of Pennsylvania, how they basically have not been changed since 1965, and they really need to be changed, but it's difficult to get things changed in Harrisburg, as we know. But a lot of different ways that municipalities can generate revenue by levying various taxes, not just property taxes or fees. In a lot of circumstances, depends on what form of government they have. It also depends on what financial situation they're in. If they're distressed, they can do things like levy a commuter tax, which I did mention that commuter taxes, like some municipalities can do it. We're not looking to be able to levy a commuter tax. I want to make it very, very clear. If we could, it would bring the city $3.14 million a year, which is more than we take in on property taxes. But we're not looking to do that. My point was that depending on what form of government you have in your financial status depends on how you can generate revenue. I know some people got worked up about that and thought that, oh, well, they're going to be taxed or, but that was just talking about the antiquated tax code. It's not the intent of this to levy a commuter tax on anybody. So just hopefully someone, the newspaper or radio when they listen to it, will pick up on that and clarify that. But I did see some not nice comments about myself about that. But I'm used to it all these years that I'm used to it, I can take it. So just to clarify that. So I read it.
I'll make a motion.
who seconded? Council Pfeffer,
Yes.
Cora,
Yes.
Lopez.
Yes.
Gall,
Yes.
Mayor Real.
Yes.
CO 5557, general file number 3300, calendar number 21, sessions 2025, ordinance general file number 3300. An ordinance of the City of Bradford, McKean County, Pennsylvania, placing a government study commission question on the 2025 general election ballot and designating the number of members to serve on said commission.
I need for adoption. I'll second.
Council Pfeffer,
Yes.
Cora,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes. Yes.
Mayor Real.
Yes. Number 37911, approve additional grant payment of $1,450 to William L. Rogenbaum Sr. for additional rehabilitation work at 18 Marion Avenue, OECD.
Second.
Council Pfeffer,
Yes.
Cora,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes. Yes.
Mayor Real.
Yes.
37912, approve payment to IRR Supply Centers Incorporated Parks.
Second?
Council Pfeffer,
Yes.
Cora,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes.
Gall,
Yes.
Mayor Real.
Yes.
Number 37913, rescind resolution number 37895 dated March 11th, 2025, Council Finance.
Second.
Council Pfeffer,
Yes.
Cora,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes.
Gall,
Yes.
Mayor Real.
Yes.
Number 37914, approved payment to SL Welding and Fabrications, refuse.
Second.
Council Pfeffer,
Yes.
Cora,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes.
Gall,
Yes.
Mayor Real.
Yes. Number 37915, approve payment to the Borough of Punxsutawney Police.
Second.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I'd like to note that this vehicle for the K-9 unit we're purchasing in Punxsutawney is being paid for with donated funds, not taxpayer. Number 37916 authorizes the proper officers of the City of Bradford execute a lease agreement with Heather Joe DBA Starlet Dance Connections at the Robert P. Hapgood Jr. Business Development Center at OECD.
Second.
Council Pfeffer,
Yes.
Cora,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, motion 37917 authorizes the proper officers of the City of Bradford to enter on a lease agreement with the Children's Center for the Treatment of Education DBA Beacon Light Behavioral Health Systems, the Reynolds Suite 102 at Old City Hall, OECD.
Second.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Number 37918, appoint City Administrator Eric Taylor, Councilman Terry Lopez, and Mark Hollenbeck as the negotiating committee for the labor contract between the City of Bradford and IAFF Local 655, accountant.
Second.
Pfeffer,
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I'd like to thank you all for coming this evening. There being no further business for the city council, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Yeah, we're adjourning the meeting. You can talk afterward. And then make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Pat, we're in the middle of a motion. Public comment portion is over. We can talk to you after the meeting, please. Please.
Tried it.
No, we're in the middle of a motion. Public comment portion is over and you're interrupting the meeting when we're in the middle of a motion. If you have something to say, we'll talk to you after the motion's over. Well, then you can come back to the next meeting, please, if you'd like. But public comment was earlier. You had more than enough time. We're trying to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting and you're interrupting the meeting. Take your head all you want. That's why there's a designated public comment portion of the meeting. And our public comment portion is 5 minutes per person. You went 13 minutes. And I tried to, and I couldn't even answer all the issues you brought up. I tried my best. Do I have a second? A motion?
Second.
Counselor Schweber,
Yes.
Gora,
Yes.
Lucas,
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor Real.
Yes. Thank you.